Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soundkicks, a political podcast made by AEGEEans.
And before starting today's episode, we would like to remind you about the guidelines and disclaimer regarding this podcast. So we have a set of rules which define all of our podcasts, and those rules are: first one, all the opinions expressed during this podcast or any episode represents the opinions only of the participants alone. Those opinions don't reflect neither the locals or anything Asia related. The opinions and topic also can be controversial. The second rule is the following: this is not supposed to be a safe space, so please be respectful of another people's opinion expressed during this podcast, especially if it's the opposite of yours. Also, we do refrain from using hate speech or slurs. The third rule is that our opinions shall not be judged based on a common understanding of ethics, but more on the reason and logic. The fourth rule is that all the opinions expressed during this podcast are respected in a respectful way, and once in a time when there's assigned time to speak. Fifth and second last rule: before participating to a podcast, we make sure that each single guest had made some research to back up what is his or she is saying. And the last rule is possibly the most important: we're not here to lecture you or teach you anything, so feel free to come with a particular diverse opinion and feedback onto us, and even to make constructive criticism. So that's about our podcast in general, of what our guests will go say, and also to propose another episode in case you would like to listen different opinions of a matter, or in case we forgot something. So with all this, we can start.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soundkicks, a political podcast made by AEGEEans.
And before starting today's episode, we would like to remind you about the guidelines and disclaimer regarding this podcast. So we have a set of rules which define all of our podcasts, and those rules are: first one, all the opinions expressed during this podcast or any episode represents the opinions only of the participants alone. Those opinions don't reflect neither the locals or anything Asia related. The opinions and topic also can be controversial. The second rule is the following: this is not supposed to be a safe space, so please be respectful of another people's opinion expressed during this podcast, especially if it's the opposite of yours. Also, we do refrain from using hate speech or slurs. The third rule is that our opinions shall not be judged based on a common understanding of ethics, but more on the reason and logic. The fourth rule is that all the opinions expressed during this podcast are respected in a respectful way, and once in a time when there's assigned time to speak. Fifth and second last rule: before participating to a podcast, we make sure that each single guest had made some research to back up what is his or she is saying. And the last rule is possibly the most important: we're not here to lecture you or teach you anything, so feel free to come with a particular diverse opinion and feedback onto us, and even to make constructive criticism. So that's about our podcast in general, of what our guests will go say, and also to propose another episode in case you would like to listen different opinions of a matter.
So, hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Soundkicks, a political podcast by AEGEEans. Here's my guest tonight, Mateusz.
Hi, guys.
So, Mateusz is a fellow friend and historic member of AEGEE Kraków.
No, it's true.
A city where I'm living, so, well, basically you can come to visit us if you want. You can say it his place. or my place. Anyway, besides that, tonight we'll talk about the presidential election happened to be in Poland, which happened to be in 2 rounds, as possibly you have heard of. And, well, we have a lot of questions. I think some of those questions come from some articles you might read about it, and it was a discussed topic. So let's start. So, Mateusz, we've been knowing for a long time, so of course I totally trust you in this. And I'd like to ask you some question, quite a lot of them actually. So, before starting and talking about this presidential election happened to be in Poland. So, could you please tell us a bit more about the role and the figure of the president of Poland and how does the vote works?
Yeah, of course. In Poland, president's figure is not like the most important person. The position of president is much lower than, for example, in France. Actually, in general, he has the right to sign not all the bills that come from parliament. So he has the right to reject the bill if for whatever reason, and then if president rejects the bill that comes from parliament, then it comes back to parliament, and parliament actually can still vote on it, and if in parliament it gets once again at least 60% of votes, then still the bill pass. So presidents is more like this part of this check and balance system, and this is, from my perspective, this is the most important part of its rights. Apart of that, he not only has the right to reject the bill, but he can ask the constitutional court to check if the bill is compliant with constitution. And besides, there are some prerogatives regarding some important institutions and people who are in these institutions. In example, president can appoint the first president of Supreme Court, which is very important, the president of Constitutional Court, judges, members of some committees like Monetary Policy Council or the National Broadcasting Council, which is kind of important now in Poland, let's say. Just to sum up, the figure of president could be just the guy who accepts actually what he gets. So if he is from the same political group from where the government is, so usually it's just the guy who accepts what parliament gives him. But when he is not from the same political group, then his role is much higher in Polish politics. And you have one other kind of prerogative which was actually used in politic marketing during the campaign, was a prerogative of mercy. So the president has a right to pardon a criminal in Poland who was convicted by court. But maybe it's not the most important part now. Okay, so this is like the position of president. He's part of he's considered like the part of executive power, but he actually don't have any other rights regarding, I don't know, the government or anything. Yeah, and regarding the elections, so usually they're in 2 rounds. In first round, there could be as many candidates as actually can gather the 100,000, as I remember. I think it's 100,000 signatures on his candidature. And if none of them gets at least 50 plus one vote. Then there is a second round where are just two candidates with the biggest number of votes, and this round is 2 weeks after the first round.
Like in France, more or less.
I think so.
Okay. So, of course, Europe this year, and as well Poland, was hit hard by the pandemic of COVID-19. And amongst all these countries in Europe, I mean, there were just very few which this year were supposed to have any kind of a political election or referendum.
Yeah.
And Poland was one of those. But situation was here a bit like the previous like in the previous episode with Serbia. It had a little bit of controversy, and it was a bit chaotic. So could you please explain what happened with a bit of chaos with election COVID-19?
I'm going to tell you that in very 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 short version, because so many things that happened there. You would have to listen me for 1 hour. So most important part, the presidential election should have place at 10th of the May. As we know, from the March there was quarantine. And in Poland as well, we started quarantine around 15, as I remember, 15th of March. And in that moment of time, there was a kind of tension in the society. People were afraid because they were seeing that in other countries the situation is really really hard. In Poland, it wasn't that hard. We really didn't have that many infected people. Like on the end of the March, I don't remember the actual numbers, but it was not more than 1,000 or 2,000 people. I think like around 1,000. So it was really okay comparing to other countries. But still, people were really afraid. And 1 month before, so one month and something before the elections, like people were thinking like okay, they cannot actually do elections now because it's pandemic. How is it possible to organize election? People will have to stay at home. So society got scared, and they didn't want the elections, which is like obvious. But government actually started to come up with different ideas how to organize it. And we have kind of rule that we cannot change our election system, like election laws, later than half of the year, 6 months before the elections. And on the beginning of April, so 1 month and 1 week before the elections, governing party started the process of creating new bill that will allow people to vote by post, like to organize actually postal elections. Just to make sure that people are able to vote. So to make it very much quicker, people didn't want it, and there was kind of break inside even the government. There were some one of the parties, because the government is made of theoretically made of 3 parties, and one of them actually, or leader of one of them, didn't want to have these elections because like this bill which was created was very very controversial. For example, the elections first time ever would not actually be organized by somebody that is outside of government, but it should be organized by the national post. So like the from like the institution of Polish government, which was actually controlled by one of the ministers. And this was the bill, and actually like there was so many different reason that it shouldn't happen, that that there was a really big war in politics in that time. Even AEGEE Kraków made a statement in that topic.
AEGEEans and
Yeah.
Wrocław.
Yeah, with some other Polish antennas, and we're not so eager to make a statement on politics stuff, but it was that so controversial that there was no actually other option. And yeah, what happened after the bill went through the Sejm, so the lower chamber, but more important in Polish Parliament, controlled by the government. It went to another chamber, which is actually controlled now by opposition.
The Senate.
Yeah, the Senate, and they had the right to work on it actually for 30 days.
So make all the amendments.
Yeah, so they were actually asking every single one institution that could give them advice. They were asking like not only lawyers, judges, constitutionalists, but they were also asking like, for example, medical doctors, epidemiologists, if it's okay to do it. And actually 4 days before elections, there was the final voting of Senate what to do with that. So 4 days before the elections, we still have no idea if the elections happens or not. So in the end, it didn't happen. And they came to some agreement over the political parties that that they will move it to the 12th of July, and this is how it happened. But like even though the bill was not actually, it was not passed, the post, which was controlled by government, spent 80 million zloty on preparation to those elections. That actually there was no like basic to basement to do it.
Just to convert is around 20 million euro.
Yeah, 20 million euro. And until now, so it's like 2 months, nobody actually was punished for that or didn't lose any position or something. So it's quite a mess, and I really tried to do it really quickly.
So, okay, I mean, with all these premises, I mean, we're getting to talk about. So we had so far an election which wasn't held in the end,
Yeah.
and despite it cost almost 20 million euro, and with all these premises, we get to know by many international media that consider this election one of the most important, if not the most important, Poland had since 1989. So the end of communist regime, and basically, the year where all the Central Eastern Europe, the Iron Curtain basically fell with Wall of Berlin and so on. Could you please explain like why international media or maybe even some Polish analysts dubbed this a thing in this way and kind of come up with an explanation?
Of course, of course, there's like it's controversial in Poland so it's gonna be my opinion more, and not than like facts which are yeah. So it's gonna be like my subjective opinion, not like objective facts. But I guess for foreign people, it's more obvious that it's more close to the truth. So if you spend just a little time in recent 5 years on observing what's happening in Poland, then you could see that there's a lot of controversy around Poland, especially about rule of law and actually another democratic principles. Poland had this and still has the issues with rule of law, cause like the governing party which actually from last since 2015, and they win all the elections, and with kind of big amount of votes, like they have always like 40 or 42, 43% of all votes. So they have a lot of power, but from the very beginning of their getting the power, they started to use some ways, tools, etc., that are not considered like, they're considered controversial, and a lot of lawyers and constitution specialists are consider this movements non-constitutional, as such, that are driving us to authoritarian system. Especially there was kind of big deal with judiciary system. I think it was kind of there was kind of international noise about that, because like after the governing party changed people in constitutional court, kind of illegally, I would say, but I'm not a lawyer. But I perceive it as it's not it was not fully legal. They stuffed all the constitutional court with their people. After that, they started to fight with courts. They called it like the reform, but actually it was only the change of stuff. And now it's like the minister of justice has much more power than he used to have 5 years ago. So, for example, he has the power to change the president of some local court, and he didn't before.
So I mean, basically, when in general, like when you do remove like the fully rule of law, as far as I know, and you, how to say, give to the government the power which should be split.
Yeah.
It should be like diversified. I mean, you lead to have a constitutional court which is kind of controlled by the government.
Yeah.
Which kind of can create a ton of controversial in lawsuits and of any like civil and penal. So yeah, makes sense. Sorry, you're.
Yeah. So they're like. They're using really nice words to do the things. Actually, the reasons that they are using and the problems that they are underlining doing these things are for me, I consider that really good reasons to make a reform. But these reforms are actually kind of centering the power of the state in one hand, especially this control over the judicial system, also the prosecutors, etc. This is everything now under one person, and for today, like it's kind of impossible actually to take. To take anyone who is like really important person from the governing party, to take him to the court, because the prosecutors will not allow you to do that. So this is not like like full democracy. Let's name it. And they try to. They have conflicted themselves with some European institutions regarding that stuff, with European Court of Justice, etc. And for last year, I would say they tried to make like some step back. but I consider that only as a step back, only because of elections. There were like 3 elections in row, so they wanted to not look as such people who are only in conflicts. But now we have 3 years where there is nothing, and there are non-elections. So they can do whatever they want. And what's important, in April has finished the term of office of the first president of Supreme Court, and the new president is of course appointed by the president, who is from the same party as government. And actually, the person, she was one of vice minister in the of current minister of justice. So it's very hard to call her neutral at this very important position for judiciary system and for democracy. And what's more, like just after the elections finished, some politicians of government coalition announced that this is the time for media repolonization, because they're too much in hands of Germans, not in Polish hands, which means actually that probably they're going to try to buy out the media's
Nationalize,
to nationalize them. Or actually, there was no proposal, but they were talking about that before, and they were trying to attack the international media, which were attacking them. They also control the national broadcaster TVP, which is actually maybe there could be some people who would tell that what I'm telling is not objective. But I think like 80% of Polish people, even 80% of Polish people, will agree with me that the TVP is pure propaganda.
So like a mouthpiece of a government.
Only. And there are voices that they are even worse than during communism. Like it's very similar to Russian TV, the national broadcaster, where we could hear that there's a person who is actually in. There are some actors that are different people in different news on different days. We have the same in Poland. There are, for example, actors in news which are there, and they are telling that they are there are this
undercovered,
let's call it, and TV is telling that this is like some citizen, now he's some actors, now he's artist, and then he's like some farmer or somewhere like that, and this is the same person. And it's so funny, like they even funny and dramatical and tragical.
Comic drama, yeah.
Yeah, and during even the campaign, they even created the person of some American
influencer. Yeah.
No influencer, but cloth.
Like how to say.
Yeah.
Stylist?
Yeah, the stylist, like clothes stylist. They created the person, and he was telling that in this national TV that the wife of president has really good sense of fashion, etc. And this person have never existed. And people, of course, in internet start Google that very quickly, and this person never existed. But in the same day, they created him Facebook profile, Instagram profile, YouTube account, and even there was that two movies in the same day on YouTube account of this guy. So his name is Christian Paul. You can check him.
Honestly, I've checked it already, and I know so it's kind of.
And it's like it's tragical, like what they're doing, but there is a lot of people who just got used to watch this national TV, because this national broadcaster, because it's everyone has access to this channel because
it's free.
it's free. Like it is. Let's call it free. And
free
people
to
just
free to buy.
some like some to say like some simple people don't always look like and don't look on that with criticism.
Yeah.
They just they told it so in TV, so actually they have to be true. And actually, like the national TV has a lot of space in campaign, but it's another.
Yeah, like in many countries, like also mine, national TV role is still, a thing like controlled by politics, and then
that's tragic.
Every single time there's a new government, everybody wants to control it and come up with something. But yeah, I understand like totally the whole situation, and we got here already, like
maybe to sum up, I forgot because why is so important? Because we came to a situation where one party has full legislative power because PiS has majority in parliament, not big, but they have like 235 members of parliament, and whole chamber has 460. So they have only 5 votes more, but still they have the majority. They don't have majority in Senate, but actually Senate in Poland has not too much power, unfortunately. They have their own president still, so they have whole legislative power. They have government. They have president. Now they have also Supreme Court, Constitutional Court, and they have very big medium. So they control actually the whole space of power that actually is. In Poland, it's actually very, very dangerous, as we know probably from history.
Yeah, so true. Like, but how to say? Since we got to define like why it was the most important. We need now to talk about the actors. Of course, like we had a little bit of introduction in between those words in this all minutes. But like, could you please tell us a bit more about the parties? The factions. And what is more or less the spectrum, because I mean different countries have different conception what is left, right, center.
Yeah.
And I think Poland deserves its own topic.
Of course.
So.
Of course. In the very beginning, if you are from Western Europe, probably you would consider Poland as kind of conservative country. But if you are from very Eastern Europe, then you would consider Poland as a center or maybe a bit left in some cases. But from the perspective of Western Europe, we are conservative. And this is very well visible in politics and in political fractions that actually are in parliament. We have like in parliament now I think five parties, or let's call fractions in parliament. The biggest fraction is PiS. PiS. It's Law and Justice. They actually call themselves United Rights. So because they are not only one party, but there is also like 2 smaller parties. So they are in moral issues. They are very close to the Catholic Church. So they are very conservative, and in this area of politics, they always try to look like Catholics, let's call it. And from the economical side, which is the other part, they are kind of more socialistic, but I would rather call it or I would rather call them populistic. So they introduced like some as they are government for 5 years, they introduced some programs that are kind of perceived of more like buying votes programs. Some of them actually are available in majority of Western countries. For example, there's like a bonus for people who have children. But it's like much bigger than in any Western country, I would say. Like I think if you look on these bonuses in whole Europe, and if you take the highest one, then in Poland we have the same value, but still we have like 4 times lower wages, for example.
So in percentage, it's the highest.
Yeah, in percentage is 4 times higher, let's say. And if there is election, they, for example, give another rise, for example, in for
Two.
yeah, and so during the campaign for example for parliament elections, they just announced that there's gonna be another pension to every retired person in Poland, and they told that there's gonna be another one if they won the elections. So they are using in their politics the situation in Poland, because actually I also agree that in this social programs we for 10 years we did not do actually anything, and they use the situation, and now that's why actually I think they're winning. Okay, so this is the most important part because this is peace, and the biggest opposition party is PO, so civil platform or civil coalition, or however they rebranded themselves. They're also conservative, but not that much. They have no connections to church, and peace has a kind of big, and in economic issues they are more liberal. And they were governing our country for 8 years before peace, so 2007 to 2015. And from the beginning, they were actually very neoliberal, and a lot of people actually.
Yeah, you probably remember the prime minister of the time, which is now the European Council president.
Donald Tusk. Yeah, he's now there. So yeah, this is the biggest party. So PiS has like 40% in elections. This biggest opposition party has like 25, something like that. Third force in parliament is now Lewica, so the left party, and this is like they're not. Comparing to other European left-wing parties, they are not that left. For example, if you see SND in Germany, or I don't know, Labour in UK, there is maybe some fraction of Lewica who is as leftist as them, and there is a lot of people there who are more oriented on some moral issues. So, for example, they are fighting for LGBT rights, and other like moral stuff and just like fighting with connections of politics and church, because it's a big issue in Poland. So this is like majority of Lewica. And this economic Lewica, economic left, is not that big, but actually it's growing, I think. This was third party. Fourth party now is Konfederacja, and Konfederacja is like joint alliance of some I can say far right groups. Actually, they're not very. it's very divided, even though it's only like 7 or 8% in parliament. They're very divided. There is very like half of them is like typical nationalist party, and half of them is very liberal party, but in economic sense only. So they're like joint forces of this far right parties, and they're actually first time ever mm, in parliament. I would say that they gather all the people who are right or far right, and they are not in peace, so in the government. And there's last party, PSL, which means Polish People Party. And this is like a very old party. Actually, they have 100 years. This is like typical agrarian party. Historically, they were probably more left regarding like economic issues. Now, in all the topics, they are kind of centrist, like in Poland, let's call it. They're very centrist. In moral issues, they're kind of conservative, closer to church, I would say, than this civic platform. But they're like they could be the topic of this party could be perceived as a bit funny, because during this 30 years of democracy in Poland, they were almost in every government. So they were called like satellite party, which could be in every government. So after 2015, they stopped being in government, but they are as centrist that they could be in every coalition ever.
So far, well, we kind of defined, a lot of Polish political parties, and now let's get back to the election, which again, as you said, it was divided in 2 rounds, and first round, we need to talk about the first round where everybody was having their chance to get to the vote, and I collected here like especially like the main candidates here, especially one candidate we haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
I'll make the names, like if you can present to the audience who will listen to us. One is Kazimierz Kamysz, then there's Biedroń, Kozak, Duda, which is he was the former president at the time. Then Rafał Trzaskowski and Szymon Hołownia. So if you can give a bit of introduction into the main candidates.
So the 6 main candidates, because like we had like 12 or 11 or 12, I don't know. Each of these parties that I just presented to you, these 5 main parties, had one candidate, and these are considered the main candidates. And there was one out of politics guy, Szymon Hołownia, who was actually a journalist, and regarding all of the candidates, Kosiniak-Kamysz was the candidate of PSL, so this very centrist party. Robert Biedroń was candidate of the left Lewica party, so the left-wing party. Bosak was candidate of Konfederacja, so this far-right party. He was from this part of nationalists, not this more liberal regarding economy members. Andrzej Duda, so the former president, so the candidate of peace. Rafał Trzaskowski, he was a candidate of main oppositional party, so PO, and it could be important that he is the president of Warsaw of the state.
The major.
The major of
Funny definition. In Poland,
Yeah.
the president of a city is basically which is the major in English. Is literally called the president, and
but only the biggest cities. Actually.
Yeah, like all the biggest cities, like the kind of a metropolitan area, more or less. Yeah. It's called the president. So yeah, in case you didn't know it. I also voted last year as European citizen for the president of Kraków. So hey, funny story. If you're a European citizen, you can vote. Jokes aside, and well, actually, it's true. Let's get back to the candidates.
So Rafał Trzaskowski is the major of Warsaw just for 1 year, but because the elections were on. It was on
2018.
It was last May.
Yeah,
or no, it was European elections.
Yeah, it was like the same time, I think.
Not okay. So
more or less it was spring.
Maybe 1 year, so not that long. And he is like he's from this more left part of civic platform, because like the civic platform is the biggest oppositional party. They have also like some different
currents. Like opinions, like
I would say fractions, fractions inside, and I think he is considered like more liberal, more leftist, especially in this moral area, as one of the first issues that he tackled in Warsaw was introducing the LGBT card, and which was the kind of bill that focused on helping the LGBT community in Warsaw, especially at schools. Which was, of course, later on very, very carefully analyzed in national media and underlined many times. So these are the main candidates of these main parties. I don't want to tell too much about them because they are very close to the line of the party. So nothing else to add. And as I told you, the president in Poland like don't have too much legislative power. They can only approve or not. So the whole program that they presented, they could only say that if they get such bill from parliament, they can approve it or not. They have some legislative power that they can create a bill and send it to parliament, but who cares if in parliament is some other party. And the last of main candidates is Szymon Hołownia, who is a journalist, and on the very beginning his candidature was actually a lot of people were laughing of him because he got to be known publicly because as a main presenter on a Polish edition of Got Talent. So he was like 90% of people really got to know him only from this area, and actually like he's not like the only the guy who is journalist. Maybe his figure could be a bit more. I should talk about a bit more about him. He's very Catholic, but still he's very liberal in some issues, especially in these moral issues. He's not that Catholic, but he's considered. He was considered kind of as a centrist as well, because as a Catholic and very like, I don't know the word, but he was telling that he is at least several times a week in church. So he was very believing. I don't know the word.
Yeah, believer.
Yeah. So he was kind of could be accepted by this more conservative part, but from the other side. His agenda, which he presented during the elections, was, for example, very green. Like he made issues related to climate, to environment. He made a clue of his program. And actually, as far as I know, he was presenting it much earlier. So he didn't jump out of nowhere, but he did some volunteer job before on that. Actually, he created some foundation or two foundations, and helped some children in Africa, made some fundraising, etc. So he's not totally from the guy from TV. So he made something before, and he had some strong opinion on some topic, but it was seen that he is not very well prepared to all the issues that politicians should have some opinion. But what was very important. He was non-partisan, and his agenda was I'm center guy. I'm open to everyone, even if I'm Catholic and I'm, for example, I don't accept abortion. I understand that there are people who have different opinion, and I want to, as a president, I want to collect them all. So just to tell you what was his position. And yeah, so these were 6 candidates. There were 5 other, but they got 1%. So
Yeah. And one of his candidates, one of his party actually wasn't the first pick for a presidential candidate from his party. And of course, we're talking about, of course, for Polish listeners, we're talking about the Civic Platform, PO, which had as first candidate Miss Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska. Why did they change to the major president of Warsaw, which is Rafał Trzaskowski? Because I also see I had a chance to see on TV let's say the debate they had, and she was there.
Yeah.
Then a few days afterwards,
she was not.
She resigned. What happened? Also because she had some important roles before, so she's not a newbie,
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, they did it because they could, because they agreed that after if they change the date of the elections, there is possibility to change the candidate.
Okay.
So this is the first thing. But why actually did they decide to do that? Actually, her campaign was terrible. She started from the level of her party. So as I told you, they get around 25%, which is good. Good start. But from this very beginning, she was only losing. He's very bad in public speaking. Her opinions were. Maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago she would be kind of candidate, but now there's a lot of young voters and a lot of progressive voters, and she was actually presenting herself as conservative, probably just to not to make the peace voters, she didn't want to be perceived as the devil, and the devil is not the random word, because they presented Trzaskowski as such in TV. So her campaign was very unfortunate, and she had some misspellings and some answers for questions on some conference that should not happen, and she was losing the percent after percent after percent. And actually, a lot of voters of POs decided actually seeing this the candidature of Hołownia or the candidature of Kosiniak-Kamysz. And they were actually quite close in their program to PO. So a lot of them decided that maybe this is the better choice. As Hołownia is, for example, great speaker because he's journalist, and Kosiniak is like this guy who's centrist, and everybody actually has no problem with him, so he has no negative electorate. So week after week, her chances were lower and lower. In some polls, she got like 20, then 15, or on the end she got like 5% or something like
God.
that. So it was really terrible, and this was actually because there was this whole chaos with elections and the COVID situation, etc. So she decided like 1 month before. She told like, hey voters, we have to boycott the elections because these are not real elections. So people who got called by people who were like doing the poll, they were asking if they are going for elections, and they were telling, no, I'm not going because I want to boycott
She told
it.
me,
Yeah, she told me not to do that. So in the end, she had really like 2 or 3%. So it was
yeah,
really
just
really,
because the voters of her just were
yeah.
saying, I don't want to vote. Yeah.
Yeah, and they really, if there was someone who wanted to vote, he wanted to decide for Hołownia or Kosiniak-Kamysz, so more centristic people, as they were also like considered in polls. They had bigger chances to win with Duda in the second round. So a lot of people decided like, okay, they're very similar, so let's vote for them because they have bigger chances to win.
And switching a bit, and before getting to the first round of election, how it went, again, about talking about what international media covered up this whole election, a lot of controversy was made about a topic we mentioned a bit before. So some declaration about regarding the LGBT community, which has been made by some politicians, even some majors, president in some cases. So what actually happened? Because there's a lot of many information probably didn't flow well about it.
Hmm. If you are asking about what actually happened, I could tell you that actually nothing happened. There was really known topic of LGBT before elections, but I would say like this was that like typical strategy of our already governing party. Mm, Before each of last elections, the governing party, PiS, is creating their campaign on scare. Like they just want to scare people of something that they don't know or they don't trust or they consider it just bad. So in 2015, whole campaign was around refugees. So in 2015, I think they win because they have won because they were scaring people with refugees coming to Poland, etc. And last year, the topic of LGBT started to be very hot in Poland. As I told you, like Rafał Trzaskowski, who was mayor of Warsaw, introduced this LGBT card in Warsaw. It was great hot topic for national media, just to make people scared of opposition. Because like as I told you, like Poland is very Catholic party, especially in some rural areas. The Catholic Church have very big power. People really trust in church, and if priests or bishops are saying something, and they really take it really seriously. And Catholic Church in Poland is very afraid of like I don't even know how to call it. Like they call it LGBT ideology, or before they were calling this kind of like gender ideology, and they scare people that like the Western world is totally destroyed by the LGBT ideology. People are running around the streets with penises on head, etc. Really, like this you could smile or but really like this is it could be quoted. It could be quote from national TV. Really, like people are who are invited to this TV are telling such words. So this was a really hot topic, and they used it in media, to scare more like this very conservative voters, older voters, this more connected to church, and they did it for last year, for whole year, and they did it really like effectively. And now, like we thought that in this election that this is not a topic anymore, but in the moment when Trzaskowski was chosen as a new candidate, the topic of LGBT came back. Again on the agenda, and like you could every day, really like every day in news of national state broadcaster, you could hear something about this terrifying LGBT ideology, and how do sorry for this word, but how do LGBT people rape people? How do they sexualize them in the school? How do they make them masturbate at the age of 5? Seriously, like these are quotes from national TV. So this was like the tool to scare people, and they use it because as Trzaskowski came back as a candidate, the topic of LGBT card came back there. And they moved so far in yeah, in this agenda, let's call it, that some of their politicians, the government party politicians, told even the words in TV that this LGBT are not people. This is only ideology. These are not people. Even president told such words like that. Yeah. So
Considering
like
that it should be, constitutionally speaking,
yeah,
to represent everybody is kind of a
yeah. And some
blow.
of politicians of peace told like, okay, maybe there are people that but stop using this, stop defending them using this human rights topic. uh, they will never have such rights as we have. They are not normal people. These are the words of member of parliament in Poland in national TV. Yeah. So unfortunately that happened in the campaign. People like we thought that maybe they are maybe it will work even for even against them, because like the moving the topic that is not actually hot now,
Yeah.
never maybe it will work oppositely. But suddenly like they mobilized people so much, like this probably older people, less educated. They scared them. They made them going around their villages, inviting their neighbors and telling them that they have to go to elections, because if not, LGBT will rape our children at schools. Really, like these are situations that happened in Poland.
Yeah. Also, like there was the issue which also got international attention about school free zones.
Yeah, LGBT free zones.
Which again was mostly more like propaganda in the end.
Yeah, like there is some unfortunate kind of bill that happened in some regional councils, uh, which is called like naming this area of LGBT free zone. And if you listen to that, it's like terrifying. They meant more like to prevent spreading of LGBT ideology. This is what they mean by that. But yeah, like this is only the corridor just for xenophobia, for nationalists to just share more hate, more violence. So unfortunately, like 1/3 of country actually is under kind of zones like that. Maybe a bit will change because some court recently delegalized one of such bill. But as I told you, like our judiciary system is not very
Independent.
yeah independent, so nobody knows what happens in this.
So with all these premises, we can get to the first round of
Yeah.
of political presidential election. So basically, we're so far we had talking about what happened with LGBT community and of course all the candidates. And since we had two rounds of election, what were the results of first round of elections? Basically?
Yeah. So, in the first round of elections, of course, Andrzej Duda, so the former president, have won. He gathered even 43% of votes. The turnout was quite big. It was 66%, so 64. So for Poland, it's a lot, really a lot. In 2015, it was like 50 or 52, so it was a lot. The second candidate was Rafał Trzaskowski, who got around 31%, I guess, of votes. The third one was Szymon Hołownia, so this non-partisan more non-partisan candidate. He had around 12%. Next one was probably who was there? I guess Bosak was there. So this far right guy with 7, I guess 7. Yeah. Next one, next one were Biedroń and Kosiniak. So the guy from left wing party and the guy from this post-agrarian party, I would call it, and they both had around 2.5%. So the results were really tragical. Yeah, so they were like considered the biggest losers of this campaign.
And considering, like, we had losing candidates and we got to a second round with just the main two you mentioned, so Rafał Trzaskowski and Andrzej Duda. What happened with the losing candidates? Like, who did they endorse for the second round since they couldn't compete anymore?
Yeah, and it was very specific situation. Like as I remember, in every former elections, the situation after the first round was like all the candidates actually were endorsing one of these two candidates because like it's logical in democracy. These elections, I guess none of the big, let's call it like most important candidates who didn't get to the second round, none of them endorsed any of the candidates. The closest to do it was Hołownia, who actually who didn't tell that hey voters, now you have to go and vote for Trzaskowski, but he told that he's going to vote in the second round and he's not going to definitely not going to vote for Duda, and he even organized some talk with him online, of course, as we have pandemic. And he he asked him if he's going to to make his four main
Opposition candidates. Opposition candidates.
no most like four topics of him
Okay.
that he proposed in his program, and he asked the Trzaskowski if he's going to make it happen, if he win, and but he was trying still to be neutral, nonetheless he was not doing the same with Duda. So he officially didn't endorse Trzaskowski, but he organized something like that. So it was, of course, that he's he's voting for him, etc. But none of the other candidates actually endorsed any of candidates. And I consider it very, very interesting, as like usual, it's not like that. But I think it's the result of this last 15 years of politics in Poland, which made two very strong groups in society which are fighting to each other, you know. So none of the smaller candidates, none of them wants to be perceived as a person who supports one of these big forces. They all want to be perceived as someone new, someone from outside, and they want to win their elections on that. This is very, very typical in recent elections, that they tell like stop PO, stop PiS. Now we are new power and we will break this situation. So yeah,
So there was kind of a dichotomy, like
Yeah.
two parties.
yeah, almost like in US, unfortunately.
Yeah, not just like in
Yeah.
many countries. It's
Yeah.
always for years it happened to be like this.
Yeah.
So I mean, to get to the second round, before going that, there was one night which really got a lot of attention. I would say on the media, I would say mostly on the internet, and more specifically on the memes.
Yeah.
So one particular night, which sadly I don't remember the date, it
Yeah.
happened to be there were two political TV candidate debate. So
Yeah.
usually, where it comes to be like one against one, there is kind of a one-on-one debate. But
Yeah.
this time happened to be two debates. So could you please tell us what happened in particular?
It's bizarre situation, really. Like yeah, I came now to the name of like the night of two debates. It could be called like that, but it was not night of two debates. It was like a night of two monologue speeches.
Yeah, it was
More like so. Um, in Poland, like in majority of countries, we have debates before elections. We used to have like there's obligation on made like law obligation on this national broadcaster that they have to organize debate before elections. So before the first round, there was an debate, a debate in national TV, or even two, because they were like. As I told you before, we didn't know if there's going to be the first round on May, so there was a debate on May, but there was no elections. So there was another one, the first round in June, and there was as well the debate in television, in national television.
where you could have seen like effectively PO changing the
Yes, yeah, yeah,
candidate,
yeah.
yeah.
And there was actually one new candidate, like more leftist. Um, but what's important on that two things that are important on that level, let's say it. Um, there were trying to organize some other debates. And some other medias in Poland tried to organize themselves and organize one or two debates. There was even like one debate before the first round, but Duda, so the former president, didn't participate in that, so there was not that big coverage on this debate. And former president actually rejected all the invitations for any debate that was not in national TV. And when it came to debates in national TV, it was very weird in some moments. Because maybe if you are in your countries, maybe you think that now during the COVID crisis, maybe you could discuss about some, I don't know, epidemiological issues, or even some financial or economical crisis related issues, or etc., etc. Not in Poland. In Poland, the questions were, for example, regarding economics. The most serious question was, "Are you going to introduce euro in Poland?" Like they're asking that in the middle of crisis. Like if they're going to introduce euro, it was not topic in Poland in last 5 or 7 years. Seriously, nobody was talking about that. Another important question that you could hear, and this was one of the, as I told you, one of the most important, like most serious. Especially in the second debate was very interesting because there were questions like, do you think that religion should be taught in school? Like this was the question on presidential debate, and it was one of most important regarding them. There was another one like related to if you are going to sign the bill, if you would sign the bill about adoption of adoption is a good word in English, adoption of children by LGBT couples. While we in Poland, we don't even have like partners relationship. So LGBT people cannot even have like a legal bounding in Poland. So we are like 3 steps before, and we have a far right government, and they are asking if president would sign such a bill. So it's like it's impossible to have such a bill in next term. So they were like
So
national
like
TV.
really walking too much ahead of reality.
Of course. So they were like just only asking questions that would show people that this guy is very bad, so don't vote for him. And this is our President Duda. He would not ever sign such a bill. So they were very tendential. There were not even one question where there could be some kind of attack on government, like normal attack, like discussion rather, and there was no possibility to ask a question from candidate to other candidate, and questions were so it was actually like nonsense. There were only memes after that debates, and they were quite fun actually. Menelove, there was some kind of like that.
I mean, 2 debates, in 2 diverse TV channels.
I didn't get there. So it was the first round. After this first round of debates that actually were very, very poorly prepared, and they were tendential, I would say. From the other side, president didn't want to take part in debates organized by other media. And here comes the second round. And all TV stations and like TV companies and a lot of medias, around 15, I guess, different media companies gathered together to organize some debate just to make it happen, just to have any debate before presidential election. And not only like the oppositional medias, there were 3 or 4 newspapers considered as right or far right, so the spectrum was really broad.
Just because probably they wanted to capture the audience, like
Yeah,
such a great opportunity.
of course, of course. So the only medium that didn't want to take part in that was, of course, the national TV broadcaster, and it happened that national broadcaster, of course, wanted to organize its own debate, but it would be in some small rural area, and they told that there's going to be audience of local people there, and they are going to be able to ask questions. So Trzaskowski, so the main candidate of opposition, didn't accept the invitation, and Duda did not accept the invitation of this 15 companies to have this common debate. So the situation was really bizarre, because in the same moment there were 2 debates on 2, like, one was in national TV and the other was in actually any other TV, any other Facebook media profile. It was broadcasted actually everywhere. So it was kind of funny, because they were only asking one candidate for the questions, and what to tell more about the situation. Maybe as I told you about the audience in this national media debate, the audience which they were told that they are going to be from local community. Actually, they were party members of peace, and some people from local governments, etc. And they were of course asking questions that were in line for peace. On the other side, in the second debate, there were of course questions that were in line for opposition, but there were some this companies, this media that were not that were more pro government or pro right wing, so they had also the possibility to ask questions. So I would say it was a bit harder. But it was a really pity that we didn't have this possibility to have these 2 candidates in one room and just let them talk to each other, and even to give this possibility to ask them a question to themselves. Like
it's like in every single other debate you probably see everywhere.
Yeah, so that was a pity, and we'll remember that situation for years.
And with all this said, we got the second vote on June the 28th of 2020. So, of course, like, possibly we all got to know the results, but, what happened?
The polls were very equal for each other. I saw even like some comparison between the first and second round. There was like 16 or 18 polls of different companies, etc. And half of them was won by one of them, and half of them by the second one. So the difference was like 1%, 1.5%, 2%.
Which is sometimes the error margin.
Yeah, exactly. the funny thing is, of course, that there's, for example, some company that was presenting two polls in one day or 2 days, and they had opposite results. So in one, Duda was winning, and in the other, Trzaskowski, depending on who was buying these polls. These 2 weeks were very intense. There was some issue with like from the side of president. There was an issue like in March, the president used his prerogative of mercy to pardon rapist, yeah. And this was like kind of presented as a kind of big deal, and it was underlined in some more like I forgot the word, but this press that has really not good opinion, like this fact build.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is the company that has built in Germany, so they used it, like they presented it for 2 or 3 days. On the other side, the national media were using very also very very. Like for example, they they uh, they they found an information that Trzaskowski as a president went for some conference in Brazil, and of course they checked how much cost the tickets, etc. And they checked that he was there with her personal female assistant, and they made a material in news that probably they have some romance because they went there together. And of course, there was a lot of attacks regarding LGBT. They found also some information that during his term, the state of Warsaw, like the
Bibleship? Yeah, like
no, no,
the-
like no, like sorry, the city of
Yeah,
the city
city.
of Warsaw gave money like in some grant for some training course, which was delivered by Antifa organization. It was regarding actually like organization of protests, etc. But this they connected that in national TV with situation in USA.
Yeah, with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. This Trzaskowski, who is actually his liberal regarding economy, rather than leftist. He was presented as far left person who will train Antifa movements, who will destabilize our country and destroy our community. And from the other side, there were also like some kind of attacks, and it was really, really not nice campaign, very dirty. I don't want to remember that for long, but I will have to probably. It was really not nice, and how it ended, like nobody knew actually. In the end, turnover was turnout was very high. I don't know if finally if it was the record, but it was 69%. Probably it was like 0.05% less than the highest result ever in Poland.
Which happened to be by the transition from communism to democracy. So
yeah,
historic.
or 5 years later or something like that. But it was very also like very specific situation. Because
Oh yeah, the 1995.
yeah, it was the Lech Wałęsa, so the legend of Solidarność, and Aleksander Kwaśniewski, who was actually post-communist, so it was like fight of two systems, let's call it. So yeah, the turnout was really, really big. There was some problems with voting abroad, but I would say it was not that big deal. People I saw like a lot of movies, like people were standing, for example, in Split in Zagreb. They were standing there as tourists till 1 or 2 a.m. to just get to the to and vote there. so it was very big, but the turnout on rural areas, I would say, were bigger. It was bigger than on in cities, and this is typical division in Poland. Like this big cities are and cities actually are voting more liberally. I would say it's tendency everywhere. And these rural areas are more conservative, and They were voting for peace, for actual government. There was actually this I don't know if you heard about it. There was this campaign with fire
trucks.
Fire trucks. Government made some campaign that if they split it country in 49 regions, and they told that I don't know how it is in English, but we have the small region of
like a county.
County. We call it gmina in Polish.
Gmina,
so the county which has less than 20,000 citizens, and will have the biggest turnout in this 49 regions, in one of this region. So 49 winners in 49 winners in 49 regions would get the fire truck. So the new fire truck for 200,000 euro, and it will in the smaller rural areas. There are these groups of volunteer firemen. They're actually quite nice. As I am from a rural area, I really admire that, and it really mobilized people. Every local this organization of this volunteer firemen wanted to win this track, and I think it really made 1, 2, 3, or 4% bigger turnout on villages.
I mean, the idea is really, besides politics, it's not that bad, you give an incentive to go.
Of course, but this limit. But there comes this limit, limit of 20,000 of citizens, and this is kind of important because could be important. I think it is important because this is the only group or size of
cities.
Of city that in which the government wins. In every size that is bigger than 20,000, they lose. So they only give the incentive to their group of voters. And probably they did it effectively because they win by 2%. So Duda in the end has won with 2%. So if they made their turnout bigger for example 4%, then probably
it paid off.
Yeah, these fire trucks probably have won elections for peace.
Aside from this, I think a good question would be one of the last ones. Since we're not like an official AEGEE thing, but we're two AEGEEans. I would say more two old AEGEEans. Was the turnout of a youth vote, which is also a topic. Aside from the rural versus city thing, which you highlighted, and is kind of a big deal here out. So, what was the turnout for the youth?
I would start from that. In Poland, this turnout of youth was sometimes bad, sometimes terrible. So in European Parliament elections 2015, I guess, or 14, we had 23% or something like that, or 20%. So it's terrible result, I guess. In parliamentary elections last year, we like youth. So this category from 18 to 29, it was like around 40%. So it was better, and or 20 to 45, something like that. And this elections, it was so big surprise because youth turnout was around 67%, something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but between 65 and 70.
So it was really high.
It was really high. Like I was so surprised, positively, of course, that we almost doubled some results. A lot of young people got interested in politics during this recent years. Worth mentioning that in first round, the votes in this group were totally splitted. Like 4 of these 5 major candidates got around 20% of votes. And Duda get actually the list of this fourth.
Yeah, it was a fourth.
Yeah, so there was like 23, 21, 20, and Duda got 90 probably, 19. So yeah, and next was like 13. So it's like
Really split.
Yeah, really split. It says a lot about Polish society and this young generation. And probably I don't remember the final result in this group, but for sure Trzaskowski, so the oppositional candidate, has won, and with kind of big difference. Like he got much more votes than Duda got, but I don't know. Maybe it was like 60 to 40 or 65 to 35. So yeah, the difference was quite huge. But like the whole turnout is really nice thing.
Yes, I mean, considering like in a 6 year span, it's different. Like from 23 to 67 is quite huge.
Yeah, and we were not the group. The first time ever, we were not the group with the lowest turnout.
Which was the lowest?
In first round, for sure, it was the oldest group, so 60 plus. In second round, I'm not sure, but this one or this second one, so it's like 50 to 60, I guess.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
It's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, considering like in general, I mean, 50 to 60 are most of the ones actually do vote the most.
Yeah.
Most of countries, regardless of where exactly. So it's kind of surprising. So we'll get to the very last question, which is, again, so far we have been talking just about subjective opinion and also there's sometimes objectively. So we come to a very subjective question. It's like, in the end, like, what's next? Or better, what do you think will be next for Poland after this election we talked so far?
It's a very hard question. Like, very
especially because you said like for the next 3 years there won't be no more election.
Yeah, I really have no idea. But I have no idea because I used to be optimistic person, so I have some hope in myself. That's why I have no idea. There's a lot of pessimistic votes. That as there are 3 years of actually one party government and one party governing on everything, every actually power in the country. There are votes that we should not be sure if there's going to be another elections in 3.5 years. And if they are there, who's going to be responsible for conducting these elections? Who's going to be counting votes? So it could be very different.
Well, I would just say, hopefully not the Poczta Polska, so at least the COVID-19 will be over.
Hopefully, if we don't have COVID 2020, COVID-23.
I mean, at least we do hope that the pandemic will be over.
Yeah, and this probably one optimistic part. it could be really some different ways. It depends actually on how far they want to go. As we see in Hungary, it's kind of not hard to lose democratic state, and this is what a lot of Polish people is afraid of. I think this is what is like 49% of Poles who voted for Trzaskowski. We are afraid of that. But still, we see that I see that we have much stronger opposition than in Hungary, as we could have this 49%. This is huge. Like I guess any candidate competing with Viktor Orban in such elections would not have any possibility to have such result. So this is the optimistic part that that we have the society that is kind of fighting for its rights, etc. But the governing party can do a lot in direction to turn the country to more authoritarian. So everything could happen. We don't know what happens with Corona crisis, how government will tackle that issue, and how society will react on this situation. If they tackle that positively, maybe they would not even lose too much of their electorate. Yeah. But like I think in majority situation, if there is some economic crisis, and this is huge economic crisis, the governing party usually lose the voters. So it could happen like that if we have if we have legal elections in 3 years, then probably I guess the governing party would lose some 8% or 10. I'm pretty sure they would not have less than 30%. I have no idea what would have to happen in Poland to make them lose this huge electorate. Really, I have no idea. Like, if you are interested in politics in Poland, you could see so crazy things during last 5 years, and it didn't even move the electorate of peace. So I have no idea what could happen to make them lose it, and only this economic crisis could be is actually bad to say like that. Even like it could be only chance for opposition to regain at least some part of power. Yeah. But nobody knows actually how it's gonna work. And if they start to make their plans happen, like this repolonization of media, etc. So they could create and share their propaganda even harder than now. So everything what could be perceived as for us I say like as more like opposition voter, I could perceive it as failure, and really they are presenting everything as huge success of government. So for me, it's unpredictable what's going to happen in next 3 years. I just hope that I can vote in these 3 years, and that I could be I could have like 70% of be sure in 70% that my vote is counted properly. If that's going to happen, then it's okay for me. But I'm really afraid if it's really if it's possible, unfortunately.
So
It's depressing.
yes, I mean, I don't know if it was like kind of finale we wanted to have, but of course, like I appreciate your honesty about it, especially like kind of a mid-run view you have on this matter. And what else more? I mean, questions are over, so on behalf of team of Sunkeys, we'd like to thank you. Also because it's our very first like kind of our recording live. Usually we used to have Skype calls and all of this. So dziękuję bardzo Mateusz for being here and
Dziękuję
hosted.
bardzo, Luca.
And we'll probably share all of this soon. And thank you so much for being in this probably the longest episode so far of Sun
Sorry
Kings.
for that.
Yeah, but it will be intriguing.
Well,
Come
I
on.
guess nobody will listen us here.
Let's give it a
like-
try. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll
Thank you for invitation.
see you.
I had to cross a river to meet Luca here.
Yeah, actually, it's true. And defend from mosquitoes a bit. And yeah, we also drink before coming here, so possibly it's one of the reasons why we got to 1 hour 40 minutes. Maybe it's not.
And believe me, that's like we could do it like 10 times
Harder,
longer.
longer of things. So thank you so much to everyone,
Thank you.
and see you to a very next episode.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.